أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My name is Nader Khan. I am a singer and a social activist based out of Toronto, Canada. And I wanted to share a few words with you all about the mercy of the Prophet ﷺ and how that relates to activism in your own local communities and generally in the global community as well. In Surah Al-Insan, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the Abrar right in the beginning of the surah. He talks about who the Abrar are, the really righteous people. And in verse number 8, he talks about them. He says, وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ مِسْكِينًا وَيَتِيمًا وَأَسِيرًا. And then in the next verse he says, إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. What do these verses mean? Who are they talking about? What kind of characteristics are they talking about? The verses are talking about the really righteous people. There's a story that goes with these verses. And really the story, what it shows us in the story is that, what we know in the story is that these verses are actually about Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidah Fatima. So they're talking about وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, and they feed others even though they themselves need that food. وَيُطْعِمُونَ الطَّعَامَ عَلَى حُبِّهِ, even though they love it for themselves. Miskinan wa yatiman wa asira. Who are they feeding? They're feeding the destitute, the miskin, the yatim, the orphans who have nobody to look after them. Asira. Who's the asira? The asira are the captives of war who you were fighting on the battlefield. And you happen to win that battle, and now they're your captives, they're your prisoners of war. They were just out to kill you, and now you're feeding them. Why are you feeding them? Like, what do you stand to gain? You're not going to gain anything out of feeding the poor. They're not going to do anything for you. You're not going to gain anything out of feeding the orphan. He doesn't have any way of benefiting you. And the prisoner of war, dude was out to kill you. Like, you're not gaining anything from it. Why are you feeding them? In the next verse, they tell you why they're feeding them. That we only seek the countenance of Allah, right? إِنَّمَا نُطْعِمُكُمْ لِوَجْهِ اللَّهِ. We are only seeking the countenance of God. لَا نُرِيدُ مِنْكُمْ جَزَاءً وَلَا شُكُورًا. We don't want any reward from you. We don't even want your thanks. Right? I mean, today, if you were to do something nice for somebody and they don't say thank you, you're upset for a week. Dude didn't say thank me. You didn't thank me. You're upset for a week. They don't even want your thanks. Why are they doing this? They're only doing it for Allah. Well, see, the thing is, it's easy to do good to somebody who will do the same thing for you. It's easy to do good to somebody who's good to you, who's nice to you, who's behaving himself. Right? It's difficult for your nafs, for your ego. It's difficult for you to bring yourself to do good to somebody who's out to harm you. But this is more pleasing to Allah, because this is sincerity, right? Because, I mean, how do you know that when you're doing good to somebody, how do you know whether you're doing it for the sake of Allah or because you're getting something back? You have no way of knowing. The way to ensure your sincerity is that you're doing good for people who have no way of benefiting you. So they're not going to thank you, they're not going to pay you back, they're not going to give you anything in return. Some of them were even out to kill you. So you're doing good for them without expecting anything in return. This is a mark of sincerity. And this is what's pleasing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because why are you doing this? There's no other reason you're doing this besides Allah. If it wasn't for Allah, why would you do something good for somebody who's being rude? Right? You're doing this for Allah. Your sincerity means that you're doing it for no other reason except for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Especially when you are needy yourself. And this is where the story comes in. The story is that Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidah Fatima were just sitting down to eat dinner, from what I understand. And now, these were not rich people. They didn't have an abundance of food. So They were just sitting down to eat when there was a knock on the door, and a poor person who was a poor beggar, didn't have any food, who was going around asking people for food. And before they even ate, they gave the food away. And they fasted. And then the next day, they were sitting down to eat again. So now, bear in mind that they were hungry from the previous day. They didn't have food to eat. They didn't switch, food for some other food. They didn't have anything to eat. They gave all their food away. The next day, they're sitting down to eat. They have a little bit of food, and as they sit down to eat, there's a knock on the door. It's an orphan, and they give that food away. And they have nothing to eat yet again. So these are 2 days straight they haven't eaten anything. A third day, they're sitting down to eat. And there's yet again somebody at the door. This time, it's a prisoner of war. Now, prisoners of war weren't, this was in Medina in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. They didn't imprison them. They didn't put them in cages and in jails. Prisoners of war were allowed to walk in the city freely, because and treating them with honor and with dignity and with respect was the Muslim way, right? And these prisoners themselves were people of honor. They were, okay, fine, we are your prisoner, we are with you, we're not going to run away. It's like, the word is bond. So when they told them, I'm not going to run away, I'm here, khalas, his word is trusted. And so these prisoners themselves, even though they were not Muslim and they were out to fight the Muslims, they themselves were people of honor, and they stuck by their word. So, but they were allowed to walk in the city freely as they wished. And so there was a prisoner of war who came asking for food, and Sayyidina Ali and Sayyidah Fatima gave that food away. No food for 3 days straight. Think about that, right? Even though they need that food themselves. And so these verses, it is said, were revealed about them. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala spoke about them as among the righteous, who give their food away to miskinin wa yatiman wa asira, and they don't want your thanks, and they don't want your, anything. They don't want anything from you in return. So, what's more pleasing to Allah is this act, because it takes real courage to give what you need to somebody else who's not even being nice to you, or who has no way of benefiting you. Because it shows real courage. It shows strength of character. It shows nobility. It shows generosity. And all of these are qualities that were perfected in the Prophet ﷺ. All of these are ways in which we take little glimpses from him and his character ﷺ, and we exemplify it. We become examples of it for others to see. And when other people ask, dude, why are you doing that? Our only response is, this is what he taught us, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. This is who he is, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Preferring others to yourself, even though you need it. So, what I'm asking you all to do is to get involved. The first African American to become a major tennis player on the scene in the United States was Arthur Ashe, and he had a really powerful saying. He said, "Start where you are, use what you have, and do what you can." And these are really powerful words to stick by. How do you make a difference? How do you, exemplify the characters of the Prophet ﷺ? Well, start where you are. What talents has Allah given you? What specialty has He given you that you can use and benefit others around you? Start where you are. Use what you have. This is if that's what's available to you, khalas, get up and start using it. Don't wait for that perfect moment where, I will have this and I will have that and I will have that. Only then will I be able to do this and that and the other for other people. No. Start where you are. Use what you have and do whatever you can. Right? Each of you has a special God-given talent or an ability. Each one of us does. So, learn what it is, figure it out, recognize it, and use it, inshallah. And start with whatever comes easy to you. An easy way of starting is hunger. Out of a total population of just over 300 million people in the United States, 49 million people in the USA don't know where their next meal is coming from. When was the last time you connected with your local food bank? When was the last time you connected with the homeless in your city? When was the last time you visited a homeless shelter? And you don't have to start something new. You don't have to start your own food bank. There are existing food banks you can work with. There are existing, soup kitchens that you can say, you know what, I'm going to come there with my friends and make sandwiches. of like halal sandwiches that we can go out and give to homeless people. Can I come and do that? Work with existing organizations who already have a network through which they can distribute assistance to others. Work with, don't reinvent the wheel, but use the resources that you have available to yourselves. There's many other, things that you can do. There are hospitals in your area where there are sick people and nobody comes to visit them. Right? When was the last time you visited a hospital to visit one sick person? When was the last time you visited, an old age home, to visit, a retirement community, to visit, some of our seniors in our community? Why is that important? Why is any of this important? Well, first of all, they can't benefit you, and you're doing something good, seeking the pleasure of Allah. But secondly, we know from a hadith that Allah will ask a human being on the day of judgment. He will say, "Oh my servant, I was hungry, you didn't feed me." The servant will say, "Ya Allah, you're the Lord of the universe, how could I have fed you?" And Allah will say, "You knew that so and so was hungry. Had you visited him, you would have found him with me. With me. Oh my servant, I was thirsty, you didn't quench my thirst. Ya Allah, you're the Lord of the universe, how could I have quenched you? You knew that so and so was thirsty. Had you visited him, you would have found him with me. Oh my servant, I was sick, you didn't visit me. Ya Allah, how could I visit you? How could you be sick? You knew that so and so was sick. Had you visited them, you would have found them with me." This hadith tells us a few things. Number one is that the people who are suffering a trial and are bearing it with patience are with Allah. They are with Allah. And the second thing it tells you is that you're wanting to be close to Allah. The easiest way to get close to Allah is by going and serving these people, because they are with Allah. If you want to be with Allah, be with the people who are with Allah. And the ones who are suffering and enduring in patience are with Allah. So visiting them and serving them is the easiest path to Allah. And so there are any number of there are any number of causes in your own local community that you can. All you have to do is open up your eyes and connect with them and figure out what's going on and figure out how you can be of any assistance. And if you can't be of any assistance, go there and learn what they're doing, and inshallah you will become somebody who will be able to assist others. But please do get involved, not as if you're doing a favor to anybody else. No, none of us are doing any favors to anybody else by getting involved and serving others. We are only doing this for ourselves because we are recognizing the intense, urgent need that we have in our lives for the mercy of God. And by having mercy on others and by exemplifying that mercy towards others, we will inshallah become ready to receive that mercy in our own lives. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.